You open your brokerage app. You've got $240 sitting in a dividend stock you bought 6 months ago because some guy on YouTube told you dividends were passive income. You check what you got paid this quarter, 91 cents. 91 cents. You worked 40 hours this week for that paycheck, and your investment worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 3 months, to hand you less money than a pack of gum. And somewhere in the back of your head, a voice says, "This is a scam." Dividend investing is a scam for broke people who can't afford real stocks. You close the app. You feel stupid. And here's the thing. You're not stupid. You just started at the wrong number, and nobody bothered to tell you what the right number actually is. Look, I need to say something that's going to sound obvious, but almost nobody actually internalizes it. There is a minimum amount of money where dividend investing stops being a joke and starts being math. Below that number, you are just donating your patience to a spreadsheet. Above that number, something switches on. And I mean that almost literally. There's a mechanical point where the snowball starts rolling instead of just sitting there, melting in the sun. And today, I'm going to show you exactly where that line is, because I promise you, it is not where you think it is. And it's not what the finance bros on your feed are telling you either. So let's deal with the elephant in the room first. 91 cents a quarter feels humiliating. And, I get why. We're wired to compare effort to reward in real time. You worked, you got paid, same day. Your money worked, and the reward showed up 3 months later, and it was smaller than a tip you'd leave a barista. Your brain does the math instantly. 40 hours of labor equals a real paycheck. 0 hours of labor from your money equals 91 cents. Conclusion: my money is lazy and useless. Except that conclusion is wrong, and here's why. You're judging a tree by how much fruit it grows in its first season. Nobody plants an apple seed in March and gets mad in June that there's no apples yet. But that's exactly what we do with money. We expect a stock we bought with $3,000 to behave like it's been compounding for 15 years on day one. Here's a statistic that should honestly make you a little angry. According to Hartford Funds' long-running research on dividend contribution to total stock market returns, dividends and dividend reinvestment have accounted for roughly 84% of the S&P 500's total return since 1960. 84%. Not 10%. Not some cute little bonus on top of the real gains from price appreciation. The majority of the wealth built in the stock market over the last 6 decades came from dividends being reinvested, not from stock prices going up. And almost nobody investing today knows that number. They think dividends are the consolation prize. They're actually the main event. So if dividends are that powerful, why does it feel so pathetic when you're the one collecting them? Because of one word: scale. And scale needs a threshold. Let me show you what I mean with a metaphor, because the raw numbers alone won't land this the way I need them to. Picture a snowball at the top of a hill. If that snowball is the size of a golf ball, you can push it down that hill all day and it is going to melt, or get stuck on a pebble, or just sit there because it doesn't have enough mass to keep rolling on its own. It needs outside force, meaning you, pushing it constantly, for it to move at all. But if that snowball starts the size of a basketball, gravity does the work. It picks up snow on its own. It gets bigger on its own. You don't need to push it anymore. You just need to not stop it. Dividend investing works exactly like that. Below a certain dollar amount, your dividends are the golf ball. They're too small to meaningfully reinvest into anything that changes your trajectory. 91 cents doesn't buy another share of most stocks. It just sits in your account as cash, doing absolutely nothing, waiting for enough of its friends to show up so it can finally buy something. That's the part nobody explains. It's not that dividend investing doesn't work at small amounts. It's that the reinvestment engine, the actual mechanism that makes it powerful, physically cannot turn on yet. So here's the number. Based on how dividend reinvestment actually functions, Most people need somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 invested in solid dividend-paying companies at an average yield around 3 to 4% before the system starts to feel and behave like a snowball instead of a chore. At $20,000 invested at a 3.5% yield, you're generating around $700 a year in dividends. That's roughly $58 a month. Now, $58 a month is real. That's enough to consistently buy fractional or whole shares every single month without you adding a single extra dollar of your own money. That is the moment the golf ball becomes a basketball. That's the threshold. Below $20,000, and I want to be honest with you here, because most channels won't be, dividend investing basically functions as a slow motion decoration on your portfolio. It's not doing nothing. Don't get me wrong. Every dollar reinvested is still buying you more shares, more ownership, more future income. But psychologically and mechanically, it is not going to feel like anything is happening for a long time. And that's exactly the phase where most people quit. There's actual research on this kind of early stage abandonment, and it's brutal. A widely cited fidelity analysis of their own retirement account holders found that the accounts with the best returns over a 10-year period often belonged to people who had forgotten they even had the account, or who had passed away, and the account simply sat untouched. Meanwhile, the accounts that underperformed were disproportionately the ones people actively checked and fiddled with. The people who watched their 91-cent dividend payments show up every quarter and made decisions based on that feeling, they're the ones who bailed. The people who ignored the number and let the mechanism run, they're the ones who ended up rich by accident. So now, you understand why it feels bad early on, and you know the actual number where it starts to feel real. But here's the part that's going to change how you think about this completely, and it's the part almost nobody talks about, which is that the dollar amount matters less than the shape of how you get there. Let's say you don't have $20,000 sitting around, because let's be honest, most people watching this don't. Here's what actually gets you to that snowball threshold fastest, and it's not what you'd assume. It's not picking the highest yielding stock you can find. High yield without stability is how people get burned, chasing 8 and 9% yields on companies that cut their dividend 18 months later and tank the share price along with it. What actually works is consistency of contribution, not size of yield. If you invest $300 a month into a diversified basket of dividend-paying companies averaging a 3.5% yield, with dividends automatically reinvested, you cross that $20,000 threshold in a little under 5 years, assuming a conservative 7% average annual growth rate on top of the dividends themselves. 5 years, not 15, not 20. 5 years of unglamorous, boring, unremarkable contributions, and you cross the line from golf ball to basketball. And here's the reveal that I think actually matters most in this entire video. Once you cross that threshold, the math stops needing you. At $20,000 growing at a blended rate of roughly 10% annually, which accounts for both price appreciation and reinvested dividends, that number becomes $50,000 in about 9.5 years without you adding another single dollar. It becomes $100,000 in about 18 years. The snowball doesn't need your monthly contribution to double. It needs gravity, and gravity is free. Compare that to someone who never crosses the threshold. Someone who puts $500 into a dividend stock, gets discouraged by the size of the payments, and never adds more. Their $500 at 10% for 18 years becomes about $2,800. Same market, same stock, same time horizon. The only difference is one person built enough mass for the snowball to roll on its own, and the other person left a golf ball sitting at the top of a hill for 2 decades. Now, let me address the objection. I already know some of you have, because I'd have it too. What if I can't do $300 a month? Here's the actual answer, and it's more important than the number itself. The threshold isn't a wall you either clear or don't. It's a slope. Every single dollar you add gets you closer to the point where reinvestment becomes self-sustaining. If all you can do right now is $50 a month, you're not failing. You're just further back on the slope, and the slope still works the same way. It just takes longer. Roughly 13 to 14 years instead of 5 to reach that same $20,000 mark at similar growth assumptions. The math doesn't punish you for starting small. It only punishes you for stopping. And that's really the whole point of this video, if I'm honest with you. The reason dividend investing has this reputation as this weak, embarrassing, why bother strategy isn't because the strategy is weak. It's because almost nobody explains that there's a runway before takeoff. You don't judge a plane's speed while it's still taxiing on the tarmac. But that's what we do with our portfolios every single quarter, checking the dividend payment like it's supposed to already be cruising at 35,000 feet when it hasn't even left the ground yet. So here's what I actually want you to do after watching this. First, stop judging your dividend income by the dollar amount showing up in your account right now. Judge it by your distance to that $15,000 to $25,000 threshold, because that's the number that actually predicts whether this strategy is going to change your life or just quietly sit there. Second, if you're not there yet, automate your contributions and automate your dividend reinvestment, because the entire mechanism we just talked about depends on money going back in without you having to feel motivated every single month. Motivation runs out. Automation doesn't. And third, give yourself permission to ignore the account for a while. Not forever, but stop opening the app every time a dividend the size of a coffee hits your account and using it as evidence that this doesn't work. You're not measuring a tree in June and calling it dead because there's no fruit yet. The snowball is real. 84% of stock market returns since 1960 says the snowball is real. But nobody hands you a snowball already the size of a basketball. You have to build the mass first. And now, unlike almost everyone else pushing a golf ball down a hill and wondering why nothing's happening, you actually know the number you're building toward. Get to that threshold. Let gravity take over. And stop asking why 91 cents doesn't feel like anything. It was never supposed to. Not yet. Watch our most recent video and subscribe for more weekly finance content